What's up, everyone? It's Wacka. Welcome you to part two of a guide of how to draft, at least at an intermediate level, because I am definitely not helping the people out there that are better than me. So, as someone that is playing in a top div level in a server, and I typically tend to get like top four seeds, at least as of like the last like 2 years. I think I know quite a bit about draft and how team structures work and how some like what makes some drafts good, what makes some drafts bad, or what makes bad drafts that well on paper like a bad draft actually performs well, um, etc. I don't know how far I'm gonna go in this video, but I do have some teams um, kind of pulled up, some I kind of made up along the way, and other ones are teams that I've drafted or I've seen other people use. Um, so yeah, um, I guess getting started, I want to show you guys a team that I used 2 years ago in TDL and I won a chip with. Um, Honestly, I don't think this is like my proudest chip, but it's one of my more recent ones. Just to give you guys like a Gen 9 example, because I think one of my better chips was from Gen 8. But I thought this team was interesting because I think even when I drafted it, I knew this team was like very flawed. And I even made some trades like throughout the season. Like I think at some point this was like a Noivern. And I think this was my Terra instead of like Diancie, something like that. But my team ended up like this, and this is the team that I went to win a chip with. Um, as you can see, I think it might have been unintentional, but my type chart looks really good. Um, However, I will try to show an example later of why the type chart doesn't really matter that much, and like you really should not be focused too much on making these like if I got rid of Corv, um, yeah, like you don't need to focus on making these like red spots into gray or even green, because that'll just make your team bad, and I will show you guys why a little bit later. But yeah, as you can see, there's some flaws with this team. I typically would not consider Superior like a elite speedmon. Um, and I use that term loosely because I in the last video I think I talked a little bit about elite speed, and I think elite speed at this point is probably like 125. Um, but yeah, this team did not even come close to having that because I got rid of Noivern, and I just had to settle for Superior being my fastest mon. However, this team did win a chip, and no, it is not because I ran Trick Room. I did not run Trick Room into Ursaluna, I think, a single time. Um, I think for the most part, in the early season, I was using Ursaluna as my Terra Cap, and I will say Ursaluna as a Terra Cap is very strong. I thought Terra Electric with Bulk Up was just very broken because I couldn't get like paralyzed. Um, the only thing people could do would be like burn or poison, which is kind of what I wanted. If I'm clicking bulk up without a flame orb, then people are for some reason more willing to burn you because maybe they're thinking you're like a Terra bulletproof type thing. Um, I don't know. That's just my experience with using Ursaluna with Terra. But at the end of the season, though, I was actually using Terra Diancie more. So what happened was Ursaluna, while it's a good mon, I felt like my team just wasn't like I wasn't winning games. I think I was like 1-3 um, before I made some trades, and then I realized like, oh, Terra Diancie actually seems pretty legit too. And this league allowed me to have both of these as Terras anyway, so like this was my final team. It was Terra Ursaluna and Terra Diancie. However, I opted to use Terra Diancie I think every week, except for maybe one where I opted to use Ursaluna, but it was because it performed super well like the first time I played a specific match, and I believe I actually lost the first time, but the second time I understood how to actually win it, and then Ursulina like kind of won in playoffs. But yeah, At this point, I'd say Urshifu Single Strike is like not even a round one pick. I see this thing go undrafted. I see this thing go for like much lower price, like 16 or 17. But at the time, this thing was allowed with Terra. I did not want to do Terra Urshifu Single Strike. I really wanted to do Terra Ursaluna because I thought Terra Ursaluna was just a lot better. And I still think it's a lot better. It just kind of depends on how you pilot it. And then I paired these with Corviknight and Slowking as slow pivots to help them get those in. As well as having Iron Moth as like a good special breaker because as you can see, like most of my team at that point is like very physical, and Iron Moth was on the board, so I grabbed it. I think I was potentially going to grab Gengar, but either way, it doesn't really matter. Regidrago is interesting on this team because it has like so much HP, and it's actually a decent Assault Vester. Like this thing kind of eats hits from like Spec Chandelure, like 30% from Spec Chandelure. It's pretty insane, and it also has really good moves. And with Dragon's Maw, if you can get rid of that Fairy type, it kind of just wins. I think a mistake that people make with Regidrago specifically is they like to run like Scarf Dragon Energy or like Specs. But I think the best way to run it is literally just either if you're not AV, like you're just going to be DD with like Dragon Fang or like a Muscle Band or Expert Belt to hit things with coverage because you get like Fire Fang to hit like steals, Earthquake to hit steals, stuff like that. Superior was an interesting mon on this team, and I don't remember it actually performing that well, but I brought it to a lot of games just because like clicking Leaf Storm was so free into a lot of people, and then a lot of people like I remember in my finals game I clicked Leaf Storm into a Dragalge, and then I stayed in on the Dragalge expecting it to just flip turn out. I Leaf Stormed again into I think a Mandibuzz, and then I clicked Hyper Beam and I killed the Dragalge that just came back in. Now, I will say there's no reason for me to run Hyper Beam. If I had run Dragon Pulse, I would have won my finals game like instantly. But because I was Hyper Beam, there was more variability to me winning or not. But yeah, Terra Diancie is interesting because it is super defensive. It has a low HP stat, but it is also a Fairy type with Draining Kiss. So if you Terra Fairy, you get a 60 base power Terra Fairy boosted Draining Kiss, and you pretty much heal back up to full after like 1 or 2 Calm Minds. I also ran like Rock Polish Weakness Policy quite a bit. You can't lower this thing's speed with Sticky Web or like Mud Shot or anything. And I think someone has tried, but because Clear Body, like it just doesn't work. So if you Rock Polish, that's your speed stat. Like nothing can lower it. And I thought that was very valuable. I think a better way to run Diancie at this point, I think most people just do like not body press. They do like Diamond Storm, Calm Mind, Draining Kiss, Body Press, and that works too. But I saw matchups where Terra Fairy, like Moonblast, Draining Kiss, just kind of did so much damage that like people couldn't really do much about it. In Diancie 1v1, like an entire team, just defensively, I think I remember a matchup where it clicked Moonblast into Zapdos like 8 times, and I only won the game with my last, I think my last PP, which I thought was freaking hilarious, by the way. And I really wish I recorded that game, and I was going to, but unfortunately I can't show that. What else on this team? Rotom was kind of just there as an electric type because it was open. It had Levitate, it had that ghost type, and it also had Defog because I wasn't actually using Corv that much. I think that was probably a mistake that I made, is not using Corv. I think in a lot of matchups, I just saw that Corv didn't like wall something, so I just opted to not use it. I think for the most part, I was using like Shifu, Ursaluna, Slowking, Superior, Diancie, and then like either like Drago, Moth, Corv, or even like Crocolore. I brought Gorbis to one game. I think I brought Rotom to like one game. Um, but yeah, like what else about this team is not like the best? I think Iron Moth is like very reliant on getting Fiery Dance boosts, and it was my special breaker. I did not like Iron Moth that much. It did get a lot of kills, but it was like 10 kills in 2 games rather than like a like consistent mon that did something. So yeah, and then the Gorbis, the server is just like super gay. So I was like, oh, Gorbis is funny. It gets Shell Smash, and I think I had Terra on it for like a week. I was like, oh, well, it's like Terra Shell Smash, Draining Kiss, Water moves, Ice moves. Um, but I think the thing that Gorbis ended up doing is actually walling a Greninja. So yeah. But the reason why I was able to win Chip was because I found techs in Terra Diancie that no one else was able to see until I brought it to them, because I don't know, some mons like Diancie are just hard to prep for. Um, and people were prepping more for Terra Ursaluna, but then they weren't prepping for Terra Diancie, and a lot of people make that mistake. So that was why I was able to win Chip, and it wasn't because this team was good, because this team felt kind of disgusting to use in a lot of instances, but it had a lot of good qualities. And I will say it's important to have good qualities when you're using a team in draft. So I think I've talked about this team like enough, and I've talked about like my experiences with it. This was also like 2 years ago, so there's not really much more I can really say because I don't remember all of it. This is a team, as you can see at the bottom of my screen, probably. This is called Common Mistakes. Now, this is a team that I've just made up on the whim, but I won't say that I've kind of targeted this at someone from, I guess, like 3 years ago, and I don't think he. First of all, like he's not gonna be watching this video, and then second of all, it's like I don't see, like he just doesn't do stuff like this anymore, so it's fine, it's whatever. Um, so this is a team that it has a Kyurem, a Mew, a Spectre, Aegislash, Togekiss, Swampert, Rotom Heat, Muckalola, Cincino, Chestnut Double, and I by the way the points that I'm using are off of the SDS Speed Tour doc that's ready for the next time we do just like regular tiers. Um, just so people can understand why like there's actually points here. And I'm not gonna put Terra in anything because I think a lot of leagues have different Terra rules. Um, so I didn't feel comfortable just commenting on Terra here. But I think if this was like a low tier Terra league, it would be Terra Chestnut and Terra Cincino. And you could probably do, I would assume in a low tier Terra league, you could probably do both. But probably not. It would probably just be like Terra Chestnut. But something like that. And if you're doing high tier Terra, then you're going to do Terra Mew. Spectre, Kyurem are banned. The rest of these really aren't even worth it. I think some leagues do like a weird budget thing where you can have like a high-ish tier Terra, and then like some people have like a lower tier Terra, so you could also see something like that or something like that. But either way, I'm just gonna kind of ignore Terra for now. So what is wrong with this team specifically? Something that is kind of wrong with it is I definitely meant to pick a normal type that was not weak to fire. So I'm just going to change this to Vigoroth just to keep the gist of this team. So as you can see, again, there's no extreme type weaknesses on the bottom. There's like there's like 2 resists to about everything here. However, just looking at this team structure, it's very, very defensive, and it does not hit very hard. Especially on the physical side. The only big physical attacker here is Kyurem. I guess Aegislash too. I think on the prep doc, I might make an Aegislash form that is just like both forms at the same time with their stats so it can show like the 140s, because for now it only says 50. But either way, it's still kind of a little bit weak. It has weak base power stabs, so I kind of just included it here. And it's slow, plus its typing is just kind of there. I think it would make sense if I had made this like Goldango, but either way, the big problem with this team is like a lot of the mons are just so defensive. You got I guess not even like super defensive, it's just middling, like not very scary mons, and they're also kind of mid-tier. You got stuff like Mew, Togekiss, Swampert, Rotom Heat. I see specifically like Togekiss, Swampert, Rotom Heat like a lot, just because they have good type chart synergy, whereas like Rotom covers grass for Swampert. Togekiss also covers grass. Rotom covers poison for Togekiss. Swampert and Rotom cover electric for Togekiss. Swampert handles poison for Togekiss. I think I already said that. Like they kind of cover each other defensively, but they're also kind of like sometimes they don't really do like too much in a game. They can pivot around like defensively a little bit, but they are just a little bit underwhelming and a little bit too like mid tier, instead of focusing more on like high tiers that scare teams more and like offer more pressure, because these mons just like don't pressure that much. And I would actually include Muck here. I actually put Muck like specifically here because I think people make the mistake of drafting a mon that was, it used to be like super good, but now I would say it's like not very good anymore. I think, well, it's still a good mon. It's just like it kind of comes in on like hazards and gets chipped down a lot. And like, to be honest, with the tiering, this team is probably not even possible in like a lot of leagues, because I would assume something like Aegislash is like 15, Muck's probably like 12 for some reason. This is 13, this is like 12, this is 12. Like, there goes all your points. But either way, this is just something I want to show as a mistake I see people make. And then also with speed tiers, they'll have something like Spectrier, like Tapu Koko on top at 130, if even. Some teams just don't even have like that speed tier. Like sometimes like I don't know, pretend like this is like Zoroark, Hisui or something. Still 110, but like at that point, like your speed tiers are kind of dwindling, and your fastest mon is Cincino. Like, you don't want Cincino to be your fastest mon. Like, you definitely need a mon above like, I would say like 11 points. That is probably your fastest mon, unless it's like a Ninjask or something. And like, if you have Ninjask for some reason, that's fine. Or if you have Jolteon, that's fine. But you still want like high tiers that are fast, because you need high tiers that are reliable to bring. So something that would make this team a little bit better would be like Mega Lopunny. This mon has Fake Out and Quick Attack, as well as Scrappy, so its stabs just kind of hit everything anyways. And it's fast in case you just need to outspeed anything, because Fake Out, Quick Attack are kind of weak moves. And I'm not going to fix like this whole team, but like a Mega Lopunny would make that team look a lot better. It also offers you like that physical breaker. It has a lot of coverage. It even has stuff like Healing Wish. If you, for some reason, don't really have another move to slot on it, it can do that kind of thing. And I'd say instead of like Togekiss, something like Enamorus fits a lot better as like a special breaker that is kind of fast. You can scarf it. Sure, it's kind of expensive, but also like on this type of team, you probably don't need, like, you could downgrade the Aegislash to like Doublade or something, as like a defensive piece. Low tier defense is all right, but I will also talk about what I think of like low tiers later. But yeah, this makes the team a little bit better. Even though you are now kind of a little bit weak to fighting, you're now a little bit weak to fairy. It's just you offer a lot more pressure. You have a sweeper in Kiram, as well as somewhat of a setup mon in Mew. Mew can kind of do everything. I originally had like Jirachi here, but I changed it to Mew because I think they're kind of similar. They do similar things with in terms of like stats and like their role compression. Like they do a lot of things, but I see people like overly rely on them into like specific roles. I don't even really like Jirachi that much, to be honest. Like I'd much rather use Iron Crown or Metagross, but Mew's there. It's a little bit hard to set up with sometimes. Um, but this is like more of a balanced team, which is something in Gen 9 I don't think is very good. I think you're more inclined to go either bulky offense or just offensive. Not even like hyper offensive, because you want like your bulky pieces. It's fine to have like a Swampert Rotom Heat here. That's fine. Those are pivots that help you get into your threats. Um, Except the pivots would probably be better if the pivots were like Galarian Slowking instead. Or even just like normal Slowking if you wanted to do that, because it gets Chill Reception and you can go into your Kyurem with a defense boost and then start clicking Dragon Dance. It also gets like screens and Yawn. Like Yawn Teleport is super obnoxious to deal with at certain times, and you can prep or you can react when you click Teleport as well. I guess Chill Reception as well, unless you're clicking Trick Room, but there's no reason to really click Trick Room on this build. But yeah. Um, Another team I want to show. This is just a basic weather team. In case people were like interested in gimmick teams, this is a really similar team to something I've drafted before, except for instead of Barraskewda, it was Basculegion, because I prefer Basculegion over Barraskewda. I guess I can't really say that because I've never used Barraskewda before, but Basculegion is really good on Rain. But the reason I put Barraskewda here is because it's a little bit less reliant on Rain because it's already so fast, and you could probably run Adamant Nature in a lot of matchups anyways. Archaludon is really good in Rain, but it doesn't rely on it. Same with Zapdos. Zapdos becomes a lot better with Rain because you're just landing your Hurricanes, and if you want to even run Thunder, like you can run Thunder now. Barraskewda, I already talked about. Overquill has Intimidate with like spikes and stuff, which is nice. You also have Screamtail, which is like a Disturbance Mon. Ferrothorn, that also gets like spikes and like Rocky Helmet Iron Barbs chip for everything. This specific team punishes physical attackers like very well. I wouldn't really say they punish like special attackers too well, which is kind of why I added like that Slitherwing Screamtail quite a bit to punish like special attackers. Encore, or like First Impression, because a lot of special attackers are weak to like Bug. Like stuff like Darkrai and like all the Psychic types are weak to First Impression, which is why I have Slitherwing on this team. You can kind of do like anything though. Like you could make this a Basculegion. A team that I drafted with Rain. Archaludon wasn't out at the time, but I did draft like Garchomp and then like Iron Bundle, and then I was like, oh, Rain doesn't seem too bad, and I could do that, and then I grabbed like Pelipper, Basque, Screamtail. Mega Swampert wasn't available because it was Paldeodex, so I'll just kind of like put. I had another Mon. I think it was like Tatsugiri. I had Tatsugiri and I had Typhlosion for fun. Typhlosion was like a 2-point Mon, and I wouldn't recommend putting a fire type on a Rain team, but I did that anyways because why not? And instead of Zapdos, it was like Kilowattrel, and then I had like Decidueye, Hisui, and then I think I had Scissor. That was my team. And this also had won me a chip. So yeah, I kind of liked it. I didn't like Screamtail that much, but Screamtail kind of had to be there because it was my only special defense tank. And yeah, this is just another example of a team that has really huge flaws, but it doesn't really matter because you can win anything if you are a good player and you have a team that cohesively, I guess, makes sense. This was a rain team that I don't even think I used Pelipper like every week. Sometimes I use like Scarf Adaptability Basket Legion. That was another reason why I thought Basket Legion was good, because it doesn't need rain. You can use adaptability. Even in rain, I actually preferred like Banded Wave Crash with adaptability with rain, just because it killed everything that wasn't Gastrodon with like Wave Crash, and that's the importance of having a breaker. Garchomp, I don't really think swept that much for the most part. The Garchomp was like somewhat defensive, like Assault Vest, or a set of like rocks. I don't think I clicked rocks that much, but it was reliable, just being there to like chip things somewhat. Decidueye had a lot of good showings as well. For some reason, I guess when you're not bringing a lot of fire types, that's good, and a lot of flying types are getting one shot by like Bundle and like Basculegion, even like Life Orb, Rain, Overquill was killing things. Kilowattrel did nothing, but people like Kilowattrel. Not my thing, but I feel like Kilowattrel will pop off. Tatsugiri had a matchup where it did the Gorbis thing, and it just kind of walled the Greninja one time. That's kind of what I needed it to do, because Rain boosted Greninja, swept through my entire team. Um, so yeah, and yeah, the Tatsugiri might be a low tier that I'll talk about in like a future video. Definitely not now, because this is just kind of looking at teams that I think are good, and I want to explain why they're good, but again, also explaining why they have flaws, and that you shouldn't focus too much on like, oh, my special defense is super bad. Like, I need to get rid of Kilowattrel for like Electros because I need an Assault Vestmon that just kind of like tanks things. Like, you don't need that. I've also won a chip in Gen 8 where my flying resist was Heliolisk. And let me tell you, that is not a flying resist in any way. It doesn't even take on flying, like special flying moves. That thing's getting probably two shot by Kilowattrel. I actually don't know that, but probably is. The next thing I want to talk about was an 8-mon team. This was a team that I drafted an 8-mon with Wisdom like a couple months ago, so this is pretty fresh in my head. It was also Terra Weavile and it was not Terra Weezing, it was Terra Ironmoth. This is one where I ordered these specifically in our draft order. So we picked up Tusk, and we were kind of on the wheel, so we also picked up Zapdos. Tusk really struggles to hit like flying types. So the next thing we did, and I guess this is kind of getting into my main topic of the day, where I'm going to create a team around Tornty, because I don't, who else would I put there than Tornty? But building around a round one pick is super important. And that's something that I think this weather team like didn't really do too much, but it still kind of worked out. Garchomp is a ground type that's not weak to water, which is why I opted to actually go rain, because my ground type wasn't like awful against water. I would say like, even though Iron Treads is weak to water, a lot of people put Iron Treads on their rain team, at least in like OU, but I think it makes sense on rain. But anyways, Great Tusk really struggles to hit flying types. And it also kind of doesn't care too much about like electric moves. So I didn't feel like I needed an electric type that resists electric, because I have Tusk. So I opted to go Zapdos, because Zapdos does both. It punishes flying types, and it punishes other physical attackers. I guess Great Tusk also punishes physical attackers, but either way, I still thought it was good because it had static. This was Palliadex, so I didn't have Defog, but it was a good pivot. It was also like a decent Scarfer offensively, or like agility. So it did things like that, and it mostly dealt with flying types. We also grabbed Weavile with Terra, which also helped with flying spam against Tusk, and it made Tusk be able to work so much better than it would have otherwise. It also has priority Ice Shard, which is really nice. Triple Axle and Knockoff are very strong stabs to have. And then if you're boosting with Terra, you can do like Terra Poison to hit fairies, Terra Fighting to hit steals a little bit better. You get low kick anyways, but sometimes low kick doesn't kill because it's not stab or anything. Um, but yeah, Weavile was a very good asset, and this team I think went undefeated until like our fourth or fifth game. But this was more recent in my memory, which is why I'm showing this rather than one of my other examples. Um, we purposely grabbed Weezing Galar a little bit earlier than other things because we valued that it got defog. We valued that it also was levitating on off the ground when we knew that we were gonna have to pick up a good steel and a good like fire. We wanted like just an extra ground resist or even like stability against like status moves like burn, because Weavile and Tusk don't like getting burnt. So it just offered them more room to be able to stay in and click buttons, even if we had Misty Surge, which we did I think once or twice. Neutralizing gas is also amazing. We also grabbed Terra Iron Moth because in case Zapdos, it was looking like Zapdos was going to have to fill more of a defensive role. So we decided to grab a special breaker with Iron Moth that also hit like steel types, for Weavile. I liked its synergy with Weavile. It was fast as well. It also got agility and good ways to boost with like booster energy or fiery dance. So we liked Iron Moth. Iron Crown could have been like a Metagross to be honest, but we actually thought Iron Crown made for like a good AV pivot with like Volt Switch. It dealt with things that Weezing didn't want to deal with, like other steel types. Like a special steel type, like it could take a Flash Cannon and stuff like that, or even like a Moonblast because Weezing didn't want to take a Moonblast. Iron Moth is a Terramon, so even though Iron Moth is like a 4 times Fairy Resist, we wanted another Fairy Resist, and I like Psychic Steel is a good typing. So we did that. We also grabbed Araquanid because we wanted webs. Tusk is a really good offensive mon, and when you have Zapdos and like Weavile on your team, you're scaring off a lot of flying types. So if we ever got up webs, there were some games where Tusk kind of could have won with webs up. It even helped with like Iron Moth not having to be booster speed because booster speed Moth is really weak when it starts off. Also kind of helped with Weavile. In some games, I think we ran like a bulky adamant Weavile because Araquanid was just kind of there. And even like Choice Band Araquanid, like nothing was switching in on Liquidation. Most people were expecting us to click webs, and then we click Banded Liquidation and just kill something. So it was also a decent breaker. Even like baiting in other flying types. We baited in another Zapdos and O-code it because it was like offensive Zapdos, and for some reason they thought they could switch in on us. But yeah. And then our last one was Arboliva. We didn't have a grass or a normal type. It was also another like special attacker. And Grassy Terrain wasn't that bad for us because Tusk would rather click Headlong Rush anyways. So we're just kind of punishing other like ground types from wanting to come and hit Crown and Moth. It also got up screens and Memento in other games. You could do that, or Strength Sap, so we could take on physical hits better in case we thought Weezing was a little bit unreliable, because Weezing was like our removal in a lot of instances or something like that, and Weezing kind of struggles against a lot of mons offensively and even like defensively. You can just run like special coverage and kind of just hit it. But yeah, that's an 8-mon team. Now I think moving on to an example team. I put Torn here. I think it's easy to see someone's going to want to put like Galarian Slowking with this. Something I want to discuss is regen specifically. People might think like, oh, double regen is kind of like overrated maybe. Torn misses a lot of moves, so why would you want to pick Torn as your round 1 pick? Well, the reason is because of regen. Being able to pivot between Torn and G-King is super nice. Torn often relies on moves that miss, and something that you can do with Torn is when you miss, you can U-turn out or hard switch out if you have to, for whatever reason. You can just go into Slowking, Shield Reception back into Torn. Now your Torn's back at a healthier health than it was before. Now you can click Bleak Wind or Hurricane again. And if it lands, good. If it misses again, well, pivot back out and go back into your Slowking. That's what I love about double or even like triple regen. You can just always kind of try again later. You can even do stuff like earlier today I ran Sunny Day Torn into like Tapu Fini and then eject button down to Gouging Fire, but I'm not really going to talk about that here because I don't think that's going to be something on this core. I actually don't know what I'm going to put on this core yet, but I've drafted Torn T G-King plenty of times. Plenty of times. What is something that I think they struggle with, though? I think they struggle with physical attackers, specifically. Galarian Slowking likes to run, like, Assault Vest or, like, specially defensive. If it needs to run physically defensive, it's usually just running, like, Colbur or Shuka Berry and then doing damage with its multiple, like, coverage moves. However, they do kind of struggle a little bit with physical defense. So something that you could add to them. I've used these guys with Melmetal, like probably like once or twice. Melmetal also offers a physical breaker because Torn and G-King, like they're not breaking through things, like they're just kind of there to pivot around and last a lot longer than they would otherwise without regen, which is why you want them. Slowking also kind of deals with a lot of like special fire types for Melmetal, which is nice, and it can absorb statuses for Melmetal. And also slow pivot into Melmetal because sometimes maybe you don't want Melmetal to switch in hard switch in. But I like Melmetal. It's a good mon that can run like Punching Glove or something like that. Something else I've done is slap Iron Treads there. Now, when I talk about these examples, even on like these other teams, I'm not gonna tell you that, guys, that these teams are like free. Like you can't just make these teams. You can't just draft what I'm like putting here, but it's just something like I currently have a core that looks exactly like this, but I'm not going to tell you that like it's completely possible. I'm just going through like a draft process and how to build around like your round one picks and how to, if your round one picks are like kind of defensive, how to kind of build around defense even, which is something that regen cores do very well. But if you're not going to do Melmetal, you could do Iron Treads. I think I'm going to keep Melmetal here for now. And something that I liked with Melmetal, Melmetal deals with a lot of fairies. It deals with psychic types, bugs, rocks. Basically anything that like Melmetal can wall, it hits very hard. This thing can even beat stuff like Corv and Skarmory. T-Wave into Punching Glove, Iron Fist boosted Thunder Punch just kind of demolishes them. If they get paralyzed once, they lose. So that's something to keep of note. You could also do like Mega Mawile. And I think I will probably keep Mega Mawile here. I think Mega Mawile, is it like 16 points in SDS? I think so. Might be like 17 now. It's 16 for now. Might move it to 17, but yeah. I'm gonna put Mega Mawile here, and I'm actually gonna change this Slowking to normal Slowking. This is what I used in SSSDL. Just kind of offers you like Slowking as a fire resist for Mega Mawile. Mawile can handle dark types for Slowking, and it also can intimidate them on switch in. Slowking can Trick Room teleport. Reason why I put normal Slowking here over Glowking is because Glowking doesn't get teleport, and I wanted teleport on this team. Specifically to show like synergies. So you get like Trick Room teleport into Mega Mawile. You could even do like Ursaluna. And I'm just gonna kind of keep going through like different mons. And like how you can like build through these. You can go back to normal like Galarian Slowking. I think at some point I'm gonna like finish a team, but how many points is Ursaluna? 15, yeah. Like you can just like there's so many things you can do with like regen or like I think specifically Slowkings are super easy to slap on teams. Because they're defensive, they have regen, they have good tools like Trick Room, Teleport. They help to get in your breakers super easily. Building off of Ursaluna, something that Ursaluna kind of struggles with is people that know what a Chilin Berry is. Can't really prep for that, but I will say, if you guys are struggling against Ursaluna, run a Chilin Berry. I'm actually gonna put I'm gonna put Alomomola here. This is a mon I don't think people are super fond of, but look at this. Now you have 3 regen mons, and you have one that's a physical tank or a special tank and a physical tank that just pivot around. You could Wish Pass into your Ursaluna. Something I remember doing quite a lot because Ursaluna it gets chipped down super fast. Just from taking a hit. If it's slower, even like now you're not super reliant on Trick Room to make Ursaluna work. I don't even think Ursaluna is like reliant on Trick Room regardless, but if you want to make Ursaluna work as your breaker because your top mon is a pivot that's focused more on utility. Although Torn can also click Nasty Plot and stuff too. But yeah, you can do that. What's a special breaker I think I want to add here? I think I'm gonna put Enamorous. Actually, I don't think I'm gonna put Enam. This is again just another part of building as well. Sometimes you'll kind of see something and you'll be like, oh, this kind of looks good, and then you kind of look at it and you're like, I don't really like this. I don't think there's anything wrong with Enamorous. Actually, I think I'm going to put Enam here because something I think people also mistake is like they say, oh, I already have a flying type with Tornadus. How many points is Enam? 15? Okay. And I also think Aloe is like, is it 11? It's 11. Okay, cool. Just want to make sure that I know what I'm doing. But yeah, they see like Torn's a flying type. So I don't need Enam because Enam's a flying type. Why would I want 2 flying types? They do different things, first of all. And Enam kind of takes a little bit of pressure off of Torn as ground resist if Torn needs to do more things like defog. Now you can do that with Enam. Well, actually Enam can't defog. But either way, like Enam is just not, it doesn't work as a flying type. I don't even think it really gets like flying type moves. Maybe like bounce, I don't know. But it does other things. It's definitely just a lot more offensive. Mostly spamming like Moonblast, Earth Power, Mystical Fire. Or on the physical side, you're clicking like Contrary Superpower and stuff like that. And that's something I actually like to do with Torn a lot too, is superpower sets. But yeah, I do like Enam right there. Now you're probably saying like, oh, I need like a Stealth Rocker, stuff like you need like your Steel type and stuff like that. And yeah, I would say you probably want to grab your Steel type. You're a little bit weak to like Ice and Rock because you have 2 flying types. Maybe you have a ground type that you're kind of reliant on, and Aloe's not the best freeze dry switch in. So you probably want a good defensive Steel type. So Now you're gonna look at the board. You'll probably see something like Corviknight, but you're like, oh, it doesn't resist ice. Archaludon doesn't really resist ice either. And if you look at your other ice resist typings, you already have a water. You could grab an offensive water, but it's also not helping it against freeze dry. So I would say specifically, if you're not going to have a good ice type, you're going to want a good steel type. If you're going to go the ice type route, though, as a resist, I'm actually going to slap Arctozolt here. Yeah, I'm putting it in the 7th slot. I don't really know why I'm doing that, but again, it's another synergy that you can have. I guess I have it at 8 points. Chill Reception into a Slush Rusher is very solid to have. Something else you can do with Arctozolt is Trick Room Chilly Reception into a Volt Absorb or a Static Arctozolt, because Bolt Beak will still move first, and it'll still have that double power if you're under Trick Room, if you're going first, obviously. So that's just something else you could do with it. Arctozolt also kind of offers you like an electric resist or an immunity. And also a flying resist, because this team doesn't have a flying resist yet, but it will, once you get your steel type on there. Actually, something I would say some people do, Scissor is a good mon. And Scissor kind of works here, but it's also not a rock resist. Our rock resist currently is Ursaluna, so you could do Scissor. I probably wouldn't recommend Scissor on that team specifically. I'm trying to think of a steel type that I think works currently. One that's not like garbage, because like something like Cobalion kind of fits here somewhat. Not like the best, but it kind of fits like if you wanted it to. I'll have to look at the steel types on the board. Durant is not a real steel type. Oh, that's something as well. Some people just kind of draft like, here's my steel type, or this is my steel type. And I think if they're not offering you like a legit niche that your team needs, then I would not grab this and say that it's your steel type. That's just not something you should do. Am I gonna hate myself for this? Am I gonna put King Gambit here? King Gambit, I think, tends to go a little undrafted sometimes. In Nat decks, I don't think I like King Gambit there. Sometimes when you get a little bit stuck, what I do, this almost seems scripted, but I assure you this is not scripted. This is just the team building process. I go on Showdown. I guess you could also go on the find page and then type in steel, not steak, steel. Okay. I think I found my guy. That is not the one. Okay. This, I think, is the one. Maybe. Now, something that I've also noticed about this team specifically is it's very slow. And that's kind of what happens when you're kind of basing a team around like Slow King support. You're oftentimes doing Trick Room, or you're setting up Snow for a Slush Rusher. So it just kind of happens that like these guys are going to be slow, and then like Alo's a slow support mon as well. I'm going to sort by speed. Oh, why is Defog here? So yeah, you can look at some steel types. Kartana maybe fits. Kartana's an interesting mon. It's also a decent scarfer. Not like the best like resist to things, but it can kind of work. How many points do I have Kartana at? 14. I probably wouldn't even do Kartana either. So if I go back to find, I'm just looking for a steel type that resists rock that also kind of doesn't suck. Or was it rock or was it flying that I need to resist? It's like a rock resist you want. Because it's hard to kind of justify switching in Ursaluna all the time. So you definitely need like a decent rock resist. As well as a flying resist, I think. So you want like a rock flying type. Or you want something that resists rock and flying is what I'm saying. Metagross, maybe? Or Iron Crown? What is the fairy type that I had on here first? Okay. It's going to be Tinkaton. And again, we have a fairy and a flying type. But these do different things. Tinkaton also offers that, like, annoyance utility, such as Encore, Stealth Rock, not U-Turn. It offers Encore, Stealth Rock, T-Wave Knockoff, Taunt? No, it doesn't get Taunt, apparently. But it's super obnoxious, and people don't like prepping for it. It's also a low tier that's just kind of reliable at doing what it does. Hits super hard on the steel side. I think Tinkaton fits pretty well here. If you're looking more now for like a physical wall, or we don't need a physical wall, we have Aloe. So at this point, like, you're kind of just filling out the rest of your team. You got 24 points. You probably want that dark type. And something about Tinkaton that I also don't mind is it being a secondary fairy for Enam, because Enam isn't gonna want to be like your fairy if you're worried about having like a fairy, like a dragon resist. I guess Tinkaton's gonna resist it with steel type anyways, but fairy is just making it immune. And also, like, Enam and Torn being flying types helps Tinkaton as well, because Tinkaton is weak to those types. Aloe helps deal with water. I'm sorry, not water, fire. Tinkaton deals with grass. Arctozolt can deal with electric. Ursaluna, Glowking deal with electric. So there's like some decent type synergies here, and I have 2 flying types. I'm not really worried about ground, and I'm not really worried about rock, even though it still says I'm weak to rock. We have good rock resists. Ursula and Tinkaton are fine Pokemon for that. And we're probably also going to grab a fighting type at some point anyways. I would say of the types remaining, you want a grass, fighting, dark, fire. So I think something you could do, I would honestly grab another high tier before dipping into the super low tiers. Tinkaton and Arctozolt are like kind of exceptions, like they kind of function. Arctozolt's like kind of a for fun mon, but it still functions. It functions as a higher tier when you're using Slowking, typically. Most of its points are because it's a Slush Rusher, so it's kind of in that weird limbo. That is not what I'm looking at. Probably want a grass type. Do you have a Spiker yet? We don't have a Spiker yet. And I think it's nice to have a decent speed tier here. So I'm going to say Ogerpon. I'm going to put Hearthflame. I could put Cornerstone. I could put Wellspring. Probably not Wellspring. I'd probably either Cornerstone, Hearthflame, or just normal Ogerpon. I'm going to put Hearthflame, though, because kind of offers that fire typing, too. Because why not? And I think Hearthflame is typically like around 13 in leagues. How many points do I have it? I have it at 13. So that's where it will be. But you could also do like normal Ogerpon if you want. This is a team where the top three has fire coverage. Even Enam has fire coverage. So we don't really need a fire type specifically. But if you want an ogre pawn that isn't weak to rocks, you can do that. And then at this point, I would say grab a good dark type is the most important thing. So you're going to look through all the dark types. Who's our normal type? Ursaluna? Okay. Duh. You could do... Probably not Iron Jugulis. Do we have a dragon? We don't have a dragon. I have High Dragon pretty cheap. I think High Dragon's not the best thing ever, but it works. Offers another special breaker and a pivot, as well as removal. And you can run this defensively somewhat. I would say maybe if you are doing this and you're doing like Terra, this, or if they allow Terra Ursaluna, like I would do that. I actually kind of like Terra like High Dragon though. I don't think Ursaluna really needs Terra with all the support that it has. If you're gonna go that route, then instead of Ogre Pawn, what I would do is like go into your find, search grass type with spikes. And these are all the grass types that pop up with spikes. You get chestnut's perfect, I think. I don't often find reasons to fit chestnut on teams, but I think this is an opportunity to use chestnut. So I'll put it there. And then say you have like 6 points left. You want a ghost type or something like that, or a rock type. I'm trying to think what would be like. This is something I go in Showdown for specifically. Something cheap. Fire type doesn't really fit there. Actually, wait, did Ogrepon Hearthflame not have spikes when I checked this? Oh, that's a issue with the prep doc. Okay, so yeah, Hearthflame is a spiker. That's kind of my bad. Now this team doesn't have a fighting type. Wouldn't say you really need a fighting type either. Fighting and fire are kind of like similar-ish typings offensively. Ursaluna has fighting coverage. Torn has fighting coverage. G-King has Focus Blast. Like, a lot of things get, like, Focus Blast or, like, some type of fighting coverage anyways. Ogrepon has low kick. I wouldn't worry too much about not having a fighting type. 1 point Mon. I guess it's actually something interesting I should talk about. What makes a good 1 point Mon? I think a good 1-pointer, it doesn't really matter. You're only going to use this like once or twice at most. I would say Ariados is a good 1-pointer. It's a 1-pointer that gets Sticky Web, as well as Insomnia, so you can't get like Spored. It also gets like Sucker Punch, and does it get First Impression? I don't think it gets First Impression, but it gets Sucker Punch, so it has stuff like that. Also it has like Knockoff. So I don't really see the issue with like Ariados here. Now, I made this team in like 15 minutes, right? This is like, this is definitely not at all like the best team ever. But I hope this understands like the thought process behind drafting. You have your Torn and your G-King and your Aloe, actually, that just kind of pivot around each other. They help to get in your other threats like Ursaluna and Enam or even Ogrepon. Torn is a decent defogger. High Dragon's a good defogger as well. I think defensive like Terra Hydra is a good mon. I would actually prefer like a dark type that had like knockoff, but that's fine. You have spikers and you have rockers. This team does not have rapid spin. And that's another thing is, like, hazard removal just isn't super important now, but it's good to have mons that have removal, which is why, like, part of the reason I have High Dragon here, like, it can do removal, especially with, like, Terra. It can defensive, like, Roost, Defog. I also like Terra Dragon Dance. And if you're doing, like, Terra Dragon Dance, if you wanted to do, like, Terra Flying, then Torn easily slots a Defog, like, every week if you ever need it to. Which is, again, like, another reason why if you have, like, Torn removal, like, you don't need anything else, and you don't really want low tier removal. Like, I wouldn't say you should do Bergmite just because it's a 1-point spinner. You're not going to use Bergmite. You're not going to be clicking Rapid Spin ever. And you're not going to bring Bergmite just to spin when you could be using any of your other mons. That is why I put Ariados here. I think Ariados is, like, my favorite 1-pointer. Something else, other people like to use Porygon. It gets teleport. We don't really need teleport on this team. Other leagues, I think, put, like, Illumise and Volbeat at 1 point. You can do that too. It just kind of goes on what you prefer. If you want, like, an annoying mon that does annoying things, fine. If you want, like, a Sticky Weber, fine. Do Ariados. Even do, like, Cutie Fly. I just prefer Ariados. Or if, like, some people just like to do silly mons, like Bulbasaur. But if you want a good draft, like, don't do Bulbasaur as your last mon. Like, just don't do that. Ariados at least serves a purpose. But yeah, I hope this helps a little bit. And part of the reason I wanted to kind of swap around, like, these top mons quite a bit was because it just offered, like, you can have so much synergy with a lot of other mons. Say your water type gets sniped. You don't need Aloe. You can go, like, Vaporeon. If you want that Wish Passer, fine, grab Vaporeon. If you just want, like, a bulky I-click flip turn, you can do, like, Milotic. And that's fine. Enam's a little bit hard to replace. I wouldn't say it's impossible to replace it. Give me, like, a fairy type with a high special attack stat. Do we have a Mega on this team? We don't have a Mega on this team, surprisingly. Say you don't really have the budget for Aloe, you could go Mega Diancie if you want. Or you could go, like, normal Ogerpon and grab a different, like, low tier fire. I think Crocalor is, like, a good low tier fire. That's not how you spell it. Crocalor. Yeah, like, you can do that, or if you have the points, Emboar is, like, pretty cheap. You know, I'm just kind of showing you guys, like, there's so much variety that you could do with your team structures. You could even do, instead of, like, Tinkaton, you could probably get away with, like, Heatran as your fire, and you could get away with, like, Alcremie as your fairy. I wouldn't say, like, you need, like, an amazing fairy, but there's some good budget fairies. I think Granbull's an amazing budget fairy. Mega Diancie is already, like, there. At this point, I'm just kind of, like, screwing around with different mons, because there's so many mons that can just kind of work based on your preferences. As long as you have decent speed tiers, I think. You want, like, 2 or 3 mons above 100. You want one specifically around, like, 120. I was showing some people, like, you could do Mega Lopunny. I like Mega Lopunny a lot. I don't draft it a lot, but I'm starting to see the vision with using Mega Lopunny. It's just one of my favorite mons I've used in, like, a long time. Now, in this case, like, you don't have a ground type, but there's some good low tier grounds as well. You get, like, Runerigus. Yeah. Honestly, if people have questions, like feel free to comment any questions or concerns. Um, hope that like this team, like me screwing around with this for the last like 5 minutes, helps you realize like you can easily mess with your team if you get like sniped. I remember in my last draft, I got sniped from Crocodile, and even though Samurott isn't like the same mon, it was like a similar speed tier. Like it still gets knockoff. It's still a Scarfer, um, similarly priced, and then I just kind of was able to pick up a different ground. You also like most leagues have Grace trade. If you need to make trades in Grace, don't feel like afraid to use it. If you got super sniped, like don't be ashamed to be like, hey, I need my ground type. Let's pick up this Runerigus and drop my other like secondary like I don't know like grass type that I didn't actually need, or like downgrade your Ogre Pond to like um, the chestnut that I was talking about, and then you could upgrade your ground or pick up a mon that like you have a role that needed to be filled and you just didn't get it because you were sniped from it, but then you saw something else was on the board. It was too expensive at the time, maybe, but now you can afford it because you downgraded something that was a little less important to you. So yeah, I hope that was helpful, and I will see you guys in the next video when I will talk about what am I going to talk about? This is a little bit of a spoiler. I did talk about 8 mons. Ooh, playstyles. This might actually be the last video. I don't think talking about playstyles is like super important. Other than like, I think the best playstyle to use when you're getting started is a bulky offense with pivots, especially with like regen, is super easy to build around if you can bring in like the right breakers and stuff like that. But if you get to like a higher level, you could randomize your entire draft and you can win a chip. A12 has done it like 5 million times. So if you're worried about that, like don't. Just do what you want, do what you think is fun. If you're trying to have fun by winning, this would be like my way of winning probably, but I don't really like Heatran, but you know, you could you can mess around with this, you know. And yeah, I will see you guys later.